Who is starting under center for you if you're Todd Monken at quarterback?
My starting quarterback will be Shedeur Sanders.
Okay.
If it was me, for a lot. You look at Jax, like, yeah, for a lot of different reasons, right? Before I even talk about Shedeur, I'll bring the Deshaun Watson part in this. This is my opinion. I think as the speed of the game continues to ramp up, I think that there are going to be things within Deshaun Watson's game that you're going to see might not be salvageable. Now, what do I mean by that? It is hard as hell to combat the speed of the game in the NFL when you've been away for so long.
The Cleveland Browns thought they were buying a savior, but they might have actually purchased the most expensive ticking clock in the history of professional sports. We are watching a $230 million experiment dissolve in real time, and while the cameras are focused on the highlight reels, something much darker is happening behind the scenes. It isn't just about missed passes or bad reads anymore, it's about a man trying to outrun a game that has already moved past him. For years, the franchise has been waiting for the Houston version of their star to show up, but as the speed of the NFL continues to ramp up, it's becoming clear that some things simply aren't salvageable. The whispers in the facility are getting louder, and they aren't about the veteran under center, they're about the young phenom who seems to be taking the mojo of the team right out from under him. Imagine leaving your job for 2 years, then coming back and expecting to perform at a level that only 5 people on the planet can reach. That is the reality for a man who has faced multiple layoffs of nearly 700 days. In the NFL, 700 days is an eternity. It's long enough for defensive schemes to evolve, for edge rushers to get faster, and for a quarterback's internal clock to get completely out of sync. When he first stepped back onto the field against his former team in Houston, there was a naive hope that the rust would just shake off. But the speed of the game is a relentless monster. If you aren't living it every day, you lose that split-second intuition that separates a touchdown from a devastating interception. Now, we're looking at a situation where the layoffs have piled up, and the rev-up period the team once promised is officially over. But the time away isn't even the most concerning part of this equation. While the fan base argues about statistics, the training room tells a much more clinical, and frankly, more frightening story. We're talking about a quarterback who has endured a unique shoulder injury, the kind that ends careers for most, and not one, but 2 Achilles tears. He's admitted it himself, he's gotten older. In a league where mobility is no longer a luxury but a requirement for survival, these injuries aren't just hurdles, they are walls. The car isn't just cold, the engine has been rebuilt so many times that it's starting to reject its own parts.
Receiving, you see a young man that is starting to get his confidence growing. He's throwing dimes, he seems to be accurate, and just has this pulse of this football team. And if the competition is that close, because from what I've been told, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, yeah, we see the wild throws from Deshaun Watson, but what we don't see is the very next play where he's 7 yards behind a wide receiver or he's making an absolute wrong read. So to me, even with Shedeur Sanders' mistakes that he's made, he's still been more consistent up until this point than Deshaun Watson has, in my opinion. And if that's the case, give me Shedeur Sanders. Let me see what I got in this young man for this season. Again,
when you've spent nearly 1,400 days on the sidelines across 2 different stints, your body forgets how to handle the violent, chaotic gravity of an NFL pocket. And yet, the coaching staff is still trying to decide if they can afford to wait for the engine to warm up. While the veteran struggles to find his rhythm, there is a new energy vibrating through the spring camps. Shedeur Sanders didn't just walk into the building, he took it over. There is a specific kind of mojo that certain players carry, a pulse that the rest of the roster can feel. While the starter is out there making a wild throw followed immediately by a read that is 7 yards behind the target, Shedeur is playing a different game. He's consistent. He's accurate. But more importantly, he's correcting his mistakes in real time. In the Monken offense, that's the gold standard. You can have all the arm talent in the world, but if the consistency isn't there, you're just a liability with an expensive price tag. The locker room is starting to notice that when the young man is cooking, the entire team moves differently. This creates a terrifying dilemma for the front office. On one hand, you have a film rat. A guy whose football IQ is allegedly off the charts, someone who can sit in a meeting and diagnose a Baltimore scheme better than the coaches can. He's walking through concepts, suggesting plays used by Lamar Jackson, and showing the advanced mind of a veteran. But there's a massive gap between knowing where the ball should go and actually getting it there. You can be the smartest person in the film room, but if your arm is inconsistent and your legs can't move at the speed of the game, that IQ is just a library of information with no way to access it. Meanwhile, the young kid might not have the 10-year veteran's brain yet, but his hands are doing exactly what his eyes see. There's an old-school analogy that fits this perfectly. Back in the day, before cars had the advanced tech they have now, you'd see people standing outside in the freezing winter, letting their cars idle for 30 minutes just so they could drive down the street without the engine stalling. That's exactly what the Browns are doing right now. They are standing in the cold.
Isn't what it was now. And you will see our parents go outside in the wintertime and they'll start that car up and they'll let it run for about 30 minutes while they getting dressed. And that was the rev up warm up period so that they could get in that car and drive off and everything is like smooth sailing.
Exactly what you're talking about, bro.
The Cleveland Browns ain't got time to go outside and wait for that car to warm up before they trying to take off if you're trying to win right now. I think with Shedeur Sanders, as we've gotten further and further along in the spring, you've seen a guy who has picked up Todd Monken's offense. You've seen a
waiting for a $230 million engine to warm up while the rest of the AFC North is already miles down the road. The problem is, this team is built to win right now. They don't have 30 minutes to wait. They need to take off the moment the key hits the ignition. If the competition is even remotely close, you have to ask yourself, do you go with the guy who might be salvageable, or the kid who is ready to hit the gas today? The shadow over this entire competition is also darkened by the things people are afraid to say out loud. Beyond the
like he knows that too. So yeah, like I think he's absolutely highly motivated. And I do think that film piece, the IQ piece matters in this competition, and that might be something that gives him a leg up. I also think Todd Monken talked a bunch of times this spring about being able to use the quarterback's athleticism. And that's not, Shedeur can do that. They were doing a lot of the same zone or read option type stuff with Shedeur, but Deshaun is considered, I know he had 2 Achilles injuries, and we're not going to really see it until they put the pads on.
Right.
But he's considered the better athlete of the two. I think
injuries and the rust, there is the weight of the accusations surfaced from years ago that still linger over the franchise's reputation. Every time the veteran fails, it's a reminder of a dark chapter the fans are desperate to close. Moving to a new era with a name like Sanders isn't just a football move, it's a PR exorcism. It's a chance to have a clean star who brings a different kind of headlines about winning, about prime culture, and about the future. The patience for the rev-up period isn't just thin because of the play on the field, it's thin because the emotional tax of keeping the current starter is becoming too high to pay. As we look toward the 2026 and 2027 seasons, the reality is starting to set in. Even the veteran himself seems to know the end is near. When asked about his long-term future, he didn't talk about legacy or Super Bowls, he simply said he's trying to stay healthy for the next 12 months. That's the answer of a man who knows he's playing on borrowed time. Humility usually comes before honor, and while he looks more humble than ever, humility doesn't fix a torn Achilles or a regressing internal clock. The traction is shifting. The momentum is flowing toward the youth. And if the first few weeks of training camp look anything like the spring, the $230 million man might find himself watching the future of the franchise from the very place he spent most of his time lately, the sidelines. But the question remains, what happens if the film rat actually finds his spark? There is a world where his superior IQ and his ability to run the zone read option give him the edge in a coach's mind. Coaches love veterans because veterans are predictable, even when they're failing. There's a comfort in knowing exactly why a play went wrong. With a young player like Shedeur, the mistakes are new, and that scares traditional coaches. Todd Monken wants to use the quarterback's athleticism, and on paper, the veteran is still the better athlete, even if his body is held together by surgical thread and hope. They are betting on the peak version of a player who hasn't been at his peak since the world looked very different. And yet, you can't ignore the mojo. You can't ignore the fact that one player is throwing dimes while the other is still trying to remember how to handle the snap. This isn't just a training camp battle, it's a crossroads for the entire organization. If they choose the veteran and he fails again, the entire front office might find their jobs off by the end of the season. The stakes are existential. They are trying to decide if they want to gamble on a past that is fading or a future that is screaming for a chance. And as we've seen in this league time and time again, the speed of the game waits for no one, no matter how much money you have in your bank account. When the pads finally come on and the real speed of the NFL hits, we're going to see the truth. It won't be about who knows the playbook better or who can draw up a Lamar Jackson play on a whiteboard. It'll be about who can survive the chaos of a collapsing pocket and put the ball in a window the size of a shoebox. One man is fighting his own body, his own history, and his 700-day rust. The other is fighting for his life and his legacy. If you had to put your house on one of them to lead you through a 2-minute drill in the fourth quarter, are you really picking the guy who's still trying to warm up the car? The answer to that question will define the Cleveland Browns for the next decade. As the summer break winds down and the heat of training camp approaches, the tension is at an all-time high. Every throw is being analyzed, every limp is being documented, and every interaction between the two quarterbacks is being scrutinized for signs of friction. We are witnessing the slow-motion collapse of one era and the loud, flashy arrival of another. Whether the veteran is salvageable or not is almost beside the point now. The game has already made its decision. The only question is how long it will take the Browns to realize it. And by the time they do, the man they called their savior might be nothing more than a very expensive memory of what could have been. In the end, this story isn't just about football, it's about the brutal, unforgiving nature of time. You can have the money, you can have the IQ, and you can have the advanced veteran status, but you can't buy back the years you lost. You can't negotiate with an Achilles tendon that has reached its limit. The Cleveland Browns are at a point where they have to stop looking at the contract and start looking at the scoreboard. Because while they've been waiting for their $230 million investment to pay off, a young man with a famous last name and a chip on his shoulder has already started cashing the checks. The rev-up period is officially over. It's time to see who's actually ready to drive.